And we're back. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. We're moving focuses talking about the Inheritors Guide. So walk us through some of the steps you list in your book when one has lost a parent. This is also something like I lost two parents. Hopefully I won't, hopefully my wife lives till she's 100 and we die like on The Notebook together in the nursing home. But I just lost my parent. Well, not just. It was 3 years ago. It feels like yesterday. Both my parents died within like 7-8 months of each other. It was very heartbreaking. Walk us through some of the steps you list in your book when one loses a parent. What's the first thing we should do in regards to estate planning when a parent passes?
So, the book is really about estate administration, but I think it's important that adult children read this book before their parents die so that they have a sense of the kind of planning that they might want to encourage their parents to do, because once your parent dies, it's too late to do any planning, really. There's some kind of tax strategic work that we can do and navigate, but it's very difficult. So this book was really born out of my experience in the last couple of years working with families, partly as a fiduciary, in helping them navigate through this, complex journey that, really awaits most children, right? Their parents will eventually die. And what I saw was really interesting in that, it's a different experience of grief, right, than what we were just talking about when you lose your spouse. It's your soulmate, it's your partner who you're with all the time. So it's a very different form of grief. And the loss of a parent is different, but it's still a profound emotional experience. And I think one of the things that I noticed in working with families is that there are, kind of issues from the beginning if there isn't a plan in place put forth by your parents that was communicated by them about what their wishes were. And really the first step, and the book is really geared towards the person who's in charge, the person who's going to be the fiduciary, whether it's the executor, personal representative, or the trustee, to really help them understand what their responsibilities are, but also to inform and educate the other siblings, the ones that may not be in charge, about what is actually involved in the process so that they are educated and not wondering why things are taking so long, why they can't get a distribution, why they can't go to mom and dad's house and pick out the stuff that they know they want that mom and dad maybe told them, you can have the china, you can have like the piano. They don't understand why they have to wait. So really kind of the first step is to secure the stuff, right? Like if you're going to be the fiduciary, if you know that you're going to be the personal representative or the trustee, your job is to make sure that you control all of the assets, not just the financial accounts, not just the bank accounts, not just whatever life insurance, but the home. You don't want things walking out of the home. And it's always amazing to me that, stuff walks out the door, or people feel like, oh, mom and dad are gone, so now I can just go in because I have the key. So I would say, just from that dynamic, I would say, setting expectations among your siblings and among your family that really nothing is going to be distributed until there's an appointment of the person who's going to be the fiduciary responsible for the stuff. Because what happens is one person takes one thing that another person thought that they were entitled to, and all of a sudden you have a rift. And the rift may not even be around the stuff. It may be around the circumstances, kind of around mom or dad's last days. I was the child who was responsible for going to the nursing home or being at the home every day, and you were, across the country having your life, doing the things, and like you walk in and you take the thing. So with a parent's loss, it's really, I think the biggest challenge is kind of keeping the peace and setting expectations early and frequently around what the timeline looks like, and also creating transparency, a little more transparency than is typical around what is actually happening, right? Like what is happening in the probate process? How long is this going to take? So much like the Widow's Guide, it's kind of a 9-step process of kind of managing the entire administration. But it's broken down a little bit differently just because of the nature of, dealing with a parent's home versus your spouse. So really, step 2 is the discovery, like I mentioned, around the Widow's Guide. Is you may not know what your parents had. There may not be a comprehensive estate plan that, in my practice, we not only create the documents, but we create a schedule, a spreadsheet of all of the assets so that whoever is named knows exactly what they are looking for and knows what they have to manage and oversee. So really that discovery stage is really pulling all of the pieces together from all the sources, whether it's from a filing cabinet or the mail or, perhaps even email. And then kind of taking stock of what documents are there. Is there an actual estate plan? Is there a will? Is there a trust? I just had a client call me, mom died 103, no will, no estate plan at all. She inherited her late husband's estate 40 years before, and the estate was in excess of, I think, $20 million, and there was no will. So, you have to understand what documents your parent had or didn't have.
Wow.
And then understand the roadmap of what is going to be the process depending on what documents you have or don't have. Most people don't recognize that if you don't have a will, it's not whatever everybody wants. There are laws called the laws of intestacy that govern who becomes in charge of the estate and who gets to inherit from the estate.
Now, these are great tips. And folks, get your copy of the Inheritors Guide from Anna's website. Is it annabyrne.com? What's your website where they can
Correct.
get the book? Or do you prefer
annabyrne.com.
What is it?
AnnaByrne.com.
AnnaByrne.com, BYRNE. Or call my office at 888-988-JOSH for the free 45-minute strategy session, and we'll give you a copy. When we return, we'll be back talking more about the emotional guide, legal, financial, and emotional guide to help your parents with their legacy. A lot of adult children don't know how to manage their parents' legacy. They feel overwhelmed. And I've heard some tell me it's a loss almost greater than losing a child or a spouse by some people. I've had a family member, they lost their child. When they lost their parent, it was like their whole legs were, their whole foundation, their parents were there when they lost their child. When their parents were gone, it was like losing the child over again. And it was like a double whammy because they were all alone. Their sense of
you're becoming an orphan, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
no
that happened with me
you
too.
are.
I mean, like you're like, oh, you have all these kids. My wife and I, it was I'll tell you my story later after we return from the break. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Give us a call now during the break. Get the book, The Inheritors Guide. Man, Anna, I'm so glad you're on the show. You're like a rare gem that we found. I don't know how we got you, but I'm very grateful to Cal for getting you. 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-5674. We'll be back after these messages. And we're back with Anna Byrne talking about her new book, The Inheritors Guide, a legal, financial, and emotional guide for adult children managing their parents' legacy. I was talking about my story, not to be selfish over here, but it is my show, so I'll share some things about me. It was so painful losing my parents. I think we're just starting to recover now. And it was rough on everything. It was rough on, because my wife and I, we are sort of an old school couple. We've been together since we were, 21. And she was the only woman I ever loved. I was love at first sight. It was, it's amazing. But we went through the loss of, we went through stillbirth, went through loss of my nephew, it was like all these like horrible things. And then all of a sudden my parents died, boom, boom, right in a row. And it was like, they helped us. We didn't even realize how much they helped us till we were gone. They were like almost co-parents. So to lose them was so, it was really one of the worst losses I could ever have experienced. And my parents were like amazing parents too. So talk to people about this. People have like, I talked to somebody after my dad died and they go, oh, well, I don't have a father. So I don't really or I had a lousy father. So you should be grateful for you have it. But I think in some ways, if you had a really good parent and you lose them, it's like, oh, they were like a support net for me for so many years that you don't really even know what hit you. And like, I don't know how many years. It's been 3 years now. I feel like we're just recovering, and I guess, that's part of the grief cycle, because I know that's the case, like you said, with spouses. But I feel like 3 years into it, we're now just can breathe. And, I wasn't really prepared for it. So I guess your book, and by the way, the moment my dad had a heart attack when I was 12, I always thought he was going to die early. He lived for 31 years after his heart attack. He died at 71. Thank God. But I'd always had like an impending moment that life was short. That's probably why I took my wife to a cemetery on our first date. But I always found that gift of my father's early heart attack, and he had all these problems like punctured lungs and was disabled for many years. It always helped me prepare for my clients better, myself, but I was never really prepared when they wouldn't be around anymore. Just the lack of their presence. They were the most selfless people on earth.
Yeah.
So I'm dying to, and then I've talked about this with other people. A lot of clients of ours are single and have no children, right? And then they lose their parents, and it's like losing a spouse. They're like, it's even worse than what I went through to some degree, because it's like, well, when mom dies, like I'm really alone. So it's all horrible stuff. But I'm so glad you wrote a guide for this. So what are some tips for people? Maybe their parent hasn't died yet, but they're sort of, showing signs of dementia or Alzheimer's or cognitive impairment. What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, that is so critical. So the book, actually, my sister-in-law is a doctor, and she's a psychiatrist who lost her mother 7 years ago.
Yeah, we all need a shrink here.
COVID.
Yeah.
No, and so she actually, the reason I'm mentioning it is she contributed to the book. So at the end of each section,
Dr. Olga, right?
Perfectly. Exactly. Dr. Olga, she contributes a section after each step that outlines what you might be feeling and what you might be experiencing. And I added that intentionally because of what you talked about, Josh, is that people are really shocked about how they feel so lost and untethered after their parent dies. I think the finality of a death, especially, a parent who's always been there your entire life, it's just very hard to kind of regroup and to move forward, and then have to deal with siblings and stuff and money, and people get stuck, and they're surprised by how stuck they get, and they attach meaning to things that they shouldn't attach meaning to. And really, legacy, while many people define it as money, it's in many ways the memory, it's the values of what your parents gave you that you want to preserve. And so in my book, I try and help people navigate that actual journey of the financial piece, while also trying to, help them maintain relationships because that's what their parents would have wanted, right? They would not have wanted to leave a legacy of strife, of argument, of litigation as a result of their death, right? So legacy in terms of this whole experience is not just the shepherding of the assets from your parents to their beneficiaries, you and your siblings, but also to preserve kind of their memory and what they stood for, and to maintain that peace, to honor that legacy. So to answer your question, Josh, I think that, really sitting down with your parents and having a conversation around what their plan looks like, whether they have a plan, and what they have, and helping them organize it and understand what they have. People of this generation, right, who are in their 70s and 80s, are very kind of closed. They don't want to share. There's so much, news out there of how things are going to get stolen. I mean, there's a lot of kind of fear, and also there's a great deal of privacy that this older generation has. But having a conversation and giving them a book like this, I think will open their mind to, what not having a plan would look like, and seeing that and having a sense of what that looks like, I think would help steer them in the direction of creating a plan, and not just creating a plan. It's maybe articulating why they're naming one person and not another person, why they've decided to divide their assets in a particular way, why certain decisions are made, because that's like the number one thing that people ask me is like, well, why did they do this? How could they have done this? Why is it that they didn't factor this in or that in? Sometimes they did, and sometimes they decided that, it doesn't matter. We have 3 children. It's going to be equal, and it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters except that they are equal children. It doesn't matter that one person is a billionaire and another person is an artist and another person just could care less about money. They don't care about that. They have 3 children. They want to divide things. These are the kinds of questions that kids grapple with. And so having a conversation with your parents before it's too late, and by too late, I mean, don't wait till they're 101 or 103 or even 80 to, sit down with them and have this conversation. Well, people don't realize I can't work with someone who has diminished capacity. I'm not going to put my license on the line and have someone sue me because I create an estate plan for someone who I thought was perfectly fine, if it turns out that they were, maybe diagnosed already and having some form of early dementia, and that undermines their plan. Have this conversation with your parents while they're healthy, help educate them about, that your goal as children is to help preserve their legacy and the love and the family that they have created. And they need to create documents that align with those legacy values that they have.
Fantastic. So the Inheritors Guide, get it, go to annabyrne.com or Google the Inheritors Guide, a legal, financial, and emotional guide for adult children managing their parents' legacy. Or call us at 888-988-JOSH. That's 888-988-5674, 888-988-JOSH. And we'll give you the book when you schedule and keep your no-obligation second opinion on your money. Folks, give us a call now, 888-988-JOSH. We'll be back after these messages.
The preceding program was sponsored by the Jelinski Advisory Group.
Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications, including 5-Star Wealth Manager, Advisory of the Year finalist by Senior Market Advisor, and top of the $1 Million Roundtable, are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Josh Jelinski or Wealth Quarterback LLC. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Wealth Wealth Quarterback website at www.jelinsky.org. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. Due to various factors, including changing market conditions, the information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, Josh Jelinsky and Wealth Quarterback do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature, is provided for informational purposes only, and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Advisory services offered through Wealth Quarterback LLC.